the Harmony Trailblazer might actually be good, and probably a little better than you even think, even though his dance moves are a little goofy. But hey, before we do that though, the best way to get cheaper shards is gonna be throughout lootbar GG. Lootbar is gonna be a safe and secure top-up website that's gonna allow you to get cheaper shards for your Honkai Star Rail account. It's 100% safe and secure. Let me show you guys how to use lootbar. So you're just gonna click the link in the comments and go to Honkai Star Rail, and then you're gonna choose which offer you want. For example, I'm gonna buy the 3,280 shards. If I buy that from the in-game store, it's gonna cost me around $50, but on lootbar it's gonna cost $42 only. If you also use the 5% coupon for newcomers, you're gonna save up even more money. So after all of that, it's gonna be around 20% off. That means I saved around $10 for this purchase. Then you're just gonna put in your user ID and the server region. Your user ID is just a number down left from your screen, and then the region is gonna show before you open your game. Make sure to double check those because that's gonna be very important to get your shards. And then when you finish, you can just click on top up now. You enter your payment method and information, and then you're done. You're just gonna wait a little bit for the payment to process. For me, it took around like 10 minutes. And then when you open up the game the next time, you're gonna get the shards. Also, if it's your first time buy-in, especially after the 2.1 reset, you're still gonna gain the normal double offers and stuff like that, like your buy-in from in-game. Click the link in the comments to recharge now. So first of all, let's dive into his kit and explain how he works and what does he provide. First of all, his normal attacks are just gonna be normal imaginary auto attacks, nothing special about them. They're just gonna deal damage. Now moving on to his skill, it's just gonna deal imaginary damage to a single target enemy, and then deal damage another 4 times to 4 other enemies. That's pretty much it. It's just 5 bounces in total. It's like Asta's elemental skill pretty much. It's gonna be pretty good in breaking imaginary enemies, but that's about it. Now moving on to his ultimate, which is kind of the most important thing about his kit. His ultimate is just gonna give a buff to all of your allies for 3 turns. With this buff, it's gonna increase their break effect by a set amount. It's actually gonna be a very decent amount, so he's gonna be helping your team break enemies faster. But the most important part about his ultimate is not really that. The most important part is that when the enemies are already broken and you hit enemies, we all know that when enemies are already broken, he receives the initial damage when you break him by this character, and then that's it. But with the Harmony Trailblazer, when your allies attack an already broken enemy, they're still gonna deal super break damage. What super break damage is pretty much is just gonna be almost like other break damage, but it's just gonna scale off based around the toughness break of your attack and then the break efficiency of your character. So that means the Harmony Trailblazer is gonna be allowing you to deal break damage every time, even if the enemy is already broken. And that's gonna take characters who rely on break damage to just another level completely. Because instead of like having to wait for an enemy to gain back their toughness and then break them again every time, they can just break the enemy, and then every time they attack, they're just gonna deal the pretty much the same break damage effect, which is just crazy and a whole new mechanic in the game. So that's pretty much what super break damage is. It's just break damage, but you can deal it when the enemy's already broken. It's also gonna scale off from the toughness reduction a little bit, so that's a little different. But in general, it's just break damage when the enemies are already broken. That's it. And then the talent is just that it's gonna regenerate energy every time you weakness break an enemy. So that's pretty much it. It's gonna help him out a lot with energy. Now for his Ascension traces, the first trace is that the more enemies on the field, it's gonna increase the extra break damage you have on enemies. It's a cool trace. It's not always usable, but it's definitely pretty good. It's also gonna give you damage bonus to that break effect. Even though if you have like only one enemy, it's gonna still gonna give you like 20%. But the more enemies, it can go up to like 60%. So yeah, it's just like a damage bonus multiplier to the break effects that the Trailblazer provides. Ascension 4 is just gonna increase his toughness reduction in the first instance of damage from his elemental skill. So instead of it being just 30 in the first one, it's just gonna be 60, and then the last 4 ones are just gonna be random, and they're gonna have the normal 30 toughness reduction. It's a cool trace. It's just gonna help him out break enemies too when they're imaginary. So yeah. And finally, his Ascension 6 is gonna delay the enemy's action by 30% when allies break an enemy, and that's huge. Obviously, we know in this type of teams, the allies break is gonna be very common. So every time any enemy is broken, their action is gonna be delayed by a further 30%. That's gonna be very huge. In some scenarios, it might even like allow you to not use the sustain, and that's super good. Now for his trace priorities, what you'd want to upgrade first. In my opinion, you definitely want to upgrade his ultimate first, because it's gonna increase the break effects that you can give to your allies, and that's always pretty good. It doesn't scale as much, so it's not like gonna be a huge increase, but if you want to upgrade something first, then probably go for it. Second, you just want to upgrade your talent. It's gonna increase the energy you get when you break enemies from your allies, and that's also super good. Again, the scaling is not really gonna matter as much, but you'd also want to upgrade it for sure. Then Then you'd want to upgrade your elemental skill. That's just pretty much just the damage that's going to be increasing, so it doesn't really matter as much. And then finally your normal attacks, it's just the damage that's going to be increasing. Most important things in my opinion are going to be your ultimate and talent. That's it. The skill and auto attack, you can just not completely upgrade them if you want to. Now moving on to his Eidolons. His Eidolons are a little different because, you know, they're pretty much just like a part of his kit because everyone's just going to have them at some point. So you can consider them just like part of his kit. They're all like free. So the first one is just that it's going to give you 1 skill point when you use your skill for the first time. So that's pretty much just like a free skill use. The second Eidolon is just going to give you 25% energy recharge for 3 turns when you enter a battle. So the first 3 turns, you're going to have an extra like 25% energy recharge. That's pretty good. These are like for speed cycling and stuff. So that's going to help you out a lot. E3 is just going to increase the level of your skill and talent. Good. E4, and that's the most important in my opinion, is going to increase all of your party members' break effect by 15% of the Trailblazer's break effect. That's going to be super good, and it's going to emphasize you a little more to build break effects on him because it's going to be helping out your team with break effects up to like 30 or 40% break effect increase on top of his ultimate's break effects. So it's going to be increasing the break effect of your allies by quite a bit. E5 levels your ultimate and basic attack. Good, I guess. I mean, it's free, so nothing is free and not good. And then finally E6 is just going to give 2 extra ticks to your skill. That means a little more damage and most importantly a little more break or toughness break, so that's good too, I guess. The most important one in my opinion is going to be E4 because it's going to allow you to give extra break effect to your teammates based around your Trailblazer break effects. Other than that, none of them really matter as much. Maybe E2 is good because of the energy recharge, but yeah, at the end of the day you're just going to get them. They're free, so yeah, just get all of them. That's it. Now, moving on to his light cone options, what you'd want for your Harmony Trailblazer is generally just the break effects. So generally, you'd want light cones that can give you break effects or maybe some energy. That's also going to be pretty good. But light cones that can give you break effects are definitely going to be the first options you want to go for. We actually only have 2 that can do that. First of all is Past Self in the Mirror. It's going to give you a huge amount of break effects. And then it's also going to buff in the rest of your allies, which is pretty good. It's also going to help you out recover more skill points and then also more energy. So it's definitely the perfect weapon for him and best in slot. If you have it, definitely go for it. Second option is going to be Memories of the Past. It's going to give you break effects, which is the most important thing, and then also it's going to give you a very small amount of energy, but we don't say no to that. So it's definitely the less better version, but if you don't have the Past Self in the Mirror, then you can go for it. It's definitely going to work too. Those are generally the light cones you'd want to use. Other than that, they're not really going to fit in pretty well. It's just going to be like energy light cones. So you can either use like Bronya's light cone, for example, just for the energy and maybe like some extra skill points and stuff like that, or you can use the Mission Kogsu for energy. That's pretty much it. Those are really the only light cones you'd want to use on him. Other than that, I mean, all of the Harmony light cones can give something to your team. So if you want to use something like more general to buff up your team, I guess you can do that. But for Harmony Trailblazer specifically, those 4 are generally going to be the light cones you'd want to use. Now, moving on to his relic sets. Before I continue that though, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're trying to reach 10k, so yeah, hit that subscribe button or I'm going to hit you. No, I'm kidding. But can you please hit it? Okay, thank you. So yeah, for his relic sets, generally it's the same thing. You just want to get as much break effect as you can. So the first option and the obvious one is obviously going to be Watchmakers. The 2 piece is going to give you break effect, and then the 4 piece is just going to increase the break effects of all of your allies by even more. So the Watchmakers is definitely going to be your go-to option. Your second best option is going to be Thief of the Shooting Meteor. It's just again the break effects and then some break effects and energy from the 4 piece too. It's going to be your second best option, so you can also use that. Those are generally the only 2 sets you'd want to use, to be honest. You can use other like supportive sets if you want to, but in general for like the Harmony Trailblazer, those are really the only sets you'd want to use. You can also mix 2 pieces from them if you don't have like good 4 sets, and yeah, that's pretty much it for his relic sets. Now for your relic sets, the first and obvious one, as I said, you just want to stack as much break effects as possible. So the 2-piece Talia is definitely going to be your go-to option. You just want to make sure you have the 145 speed. If not, it's really not going to be worth it, but with that, it's going to be pretty good. Just 30% break effect. It's always pretty good. That's really the only thing you need. Other than that, you can use like other just supportive options. So you can use like the Penacony to buff up your team as a Harmony, especially because you're probably going to be using them with other imaginaries, or like the Fleet of the Ageless, I guess, to increase the attack for your allies. But yeah, those are really not important. The only one I would say just try to go for is going to be the Talia. Other than that, you maybe just focus on like your stats, main stats and substats, and that's it. I don't think it really matters as much. Now, moving on to your relic stats. stats is actually going to be very simple to build. You don't really need as many stuff. So starting off with your main stats, on your body, usually you just want either HP or defense. Those are the only things you want. Attack is going to be viable too. You don't really want to be building crit because it just doesn't matter. Your super break damage is not going to crit, and your like normal damage is just not going to matter. It's going to be very small. So you generally just want to go for like HP or defense. Attack is again going to help out like scale off your damage, but I don't really think you'd want to go for that because your damage is just going to be lacking outside of the super break. So yeah, just go for the defensive stats, either HP or defense. Which of them, it really doesn't matter. Just focus on the substats because the main stats you're just really using whatever. So just focus on getting enough break effects from your substats and that's it. On your boots, you just want to make sure you actually have speed. Speed is going to be pretty good on him, so you'd want him fast, or her if you're using the woman Trailblazer. I just realized I've been saying him. I'm pretty sure I'm going to get cooked in the comments, but yeah. On your boots, speed is probably the only option, so make sure you go for that. On your sphere, again, it's either HP or defense. There's not really much you can go. Just focus on the substats again, make sure you have enough break effects, and that's it. And then finally on your rope, obviously you just want to go break effects. Energy ropes are not really going to be worth it. You just want to make sure you play him on the right team, and then that's it. It's going to be regenerating energy from his talent, so definitely not worth it. That's the only like real source where you can get like enough break effects, so you definitely don't want to give that up for any other thing. The break effects rope is going to be super necessary. Now moving on to your substats, there's not really much you need. The obvious and the first one you should go for is going to be the break effects. Second thing is going to be your speed up to a certain point, and then that's it. You can go for also like defensive stats like defense and HP, I guess, but the main thing you'd want to focus on is break effects. Wherever you see break effects, just use that. So yeah, it's going to be actually like super easy to build. For the final stats you'd want to have on them, you just want as much break effects as you need. I don't know how much you really want, but I'd guess more than 200%. I think that's going to be like pretty easy. Like with good substats and a break effects rope, maybe a weapon, stuff like that. Around like 200, I think is going to be a very good option. If you go above that, then good. There's no limit to the amount he can give to his allies. So just the more, the better, I guess. And then finally for speed, you just want to reach like breakpoints. So you either want to go for like 134 as a minimum, or 145 or 146 if you're using like the Talia. Or if you're lucky with your substats, you can go for 160. So yeah, just want to reach the breakpoints, or if any other sets or planner sets that you're using, you definitely want to make sure you reach your breakpoints. Other than that, I think it's okay if you're not really using any of these. You can just get away with any speed you want. Obviously, the faster, the better he is, but it doesn't matter as much. The only thing you want to make sure you have is the speed breakpoints for your planner sets. That's it. Alright, so now finally moving on to your team comps. So from what you guys seen, the Harmony Trailblazer is just going to be giving break effects to your team. First of all, it's going to be buffing their break effects, and then it's going to be able to allow them to use this break effect every time they attack a broken enemy. So it's going to be allowing your teammates to break enemies faster and then deal more damage when the enemies are broken based around their break effect, and then also buffing up their break effects. So from that, it's just like a full kit pretty much. You can just put him at any team and he can just buff up this team in general, because he's going to be allowing them to break faster as long as the elements are the same, obviously. And then he's going to be increasing their break damage. So every time they attack with their normal attacks, even if it's like Jing Liu, for example, or whatever, he's going to be allowing them to deal good break effects. So that's always going to be pretty good. Technically, it's going to be usable at any team as long as the elements are matching with the enemy's elements, or you're using like Silver Wolf or something like that. But obviously his best teams are going to consist of teams who already focus on break effects. It's going to make this teams on a whole other level, because usually you're just going to have to break the enemy to deal this break damage. But with the Harmony Trailblazer, you can just deal damage even if your enemy's not broken, or the enemy's already broken, sorry. So you can just deal damage on break and then after the break. So it's just going to be doubling up your damage more and more. So yeah, it's just going to be working very well with break effect teams. It's also going to be buffing up their break effects, so that's pretty good. First obvious teams we have, Boot Hill is going to be coming up. So you can have a Boot Hill team, let's say like Boot Hill, Bronya, and then Harmony Trailblazer. And then let's say a sustain like Fujuan or Gallagher. Gallagher is also going to be like a very good sustain with him, because, you know, it's also going to scale off with break effects. So it's going to synergize pretty well with the Harmony MC. And yeah, the rest of the break effect teams, we have like Shuya Yi, for example. So you can use like Shuya Yi, Ron Mei, Harmony Trailblazer, and then like Fujuan or Gallagher. Or like Luca, for example, Luca, Ron Mei, Harmony Trailblazer, and then like Gallagher or Fujuan. Just any break effects DPS that we had before, he can work with them. I'm also pretty sure we're going to see like more teams combination. He kind of opens up a whole like other sort of team right now, because pretty much with like him and then Silverwolf, any team can be turned into a viable break team. So I'm pretty sure we're going to see more viable team combinations. But for now, those are like the obvious ones that already break themes. You can just add in the Harmony Trailblazer and it's just gonna make them better. But yeah, that was the video, guys. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video. Peace.